November 5th, 1940, a converted passenger liner armed with 7 guns from the 1890s turned directly into the path of one of the most dangerous warships in the German Navy. Her captain knew that every one of his shells would fall short. He knew his ship had no armor, no speed, and no chance of survival. He attacked anyway, and for the next 22 minutes, while 38 merchant ships scattered into the darkness behind him, Captain Edward Fagan and his crew absorbed everything a pocket battleship could throw at them. 190 men died. 32 ships escaped. This is the story of HMS Jervis Bay. To understand why what happened on that November evening mattered so much, you need to understand what Britain was facing in late 1940. France had fallen. The Blitz was tearing London apart every night, and the island nation was surviving on one thing: the convoys. Every ton of wheat, every barrel of oil, every crate of ammunition that kept Britain fighting came across the North Atlantic and tossed merchant ships. Between May 1940 and July 1941, German U-boats and surface raiders were sinking British merchant vessels at a rate of 66 per month. Winston Churchill later admitted that the only thing that ever truly frightened him during the war was the U-boat threat. If the convoys stopped, Britain starved. It was that simple. But here's the problem. The Royal Navy didn't have enough warships to escort every convoy across the entire Atlantic. Destroyers and corvettes could cover the first and last legs of the journey near the coasts. But for the vast empty stretch in the middle, thousands of miles of open ocean, many convoys had only a single escort, and those escorts were often not warships at all. They were armed merchant cruisers, former passenger liners stripped of their dining rooms and fitted with old naval guns. The crews had a name for them: Admiralty-made coffins. HMS Jarvis Bay was one of these ships. Built in 1922 by Vickers at Barrow-in-Furness, she had spent nearly all 2 decades carrying emigrants from Britain to Australia. A 14,164-ton liner, 549 feet long, capable of about 15 knots on a good day. She was designed to move families and hope across oceans. The only enemy on her original route was the distance, but war makes use of whatever can float and carry a gun. In August 1939, the Royal Navy requisitioned her and gave her 7 6-inch guns dating from 1898, plus 2 even older 3-inch guns, no armor, no fire-controlled radar, thin merchant ship hull plating that a shell could pass through like paper. She was not a warship, but she was all they had. Captain Edward Stephen Fogarty Fagan came from a naval family that had been serving the Royal Navy for generations. His father was Vice Admiral F.F. Fagan. One of his ancestors had commanded a frigate at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. Born in Southsea, Hampshire on October 8, 1891, of Irish parentage, Fagan entered Osborne Royal Naval College at the age of 12. By 1909, he was serving as a midshipman aboard HMS Dreadnought, the most revolutionary battleship of its era. During the First World War, Fagan proved himself under fire. On March 24, 1918, while commanding HMS Garland, he rescued the crew of the American oil tanker O.B. Jennings after a collision set both ships ablaze in the English Channel. He sailed his destroyer alongside a burning vessel filled with naphtha to pull survivors from the flames. For that, he was awarded the Silver Sea Gallantry Medal. Between the wars, Fagan served in Australia. He was stationed as executive officer at the Royal Australian Naval College, which was located at Jervis Bay on the south coast of New South Wales. A detail that looks like coincidence, but in hindsight feels like fate. By 1940, Fagan was 49 years old. Promoted to acting captain in March, he was given command of HMS Jervis Bay. He knew exactly what the ship was. He knew what the odds were. When he addressed his officers after taking command on April 2, 1940, he made a promise that would define everything that came after. If the gods are good to us and we meet the enemy, I shall take you in as close as I possibly can. That wasn't bravado. For a man who had sailed his ship alongside a burning tanker 20 years earlier to save strangers, it was a statement of professional intent. He believed the duty of an escort was to protect the convoy at all costs, and he meant it literally. But while Fagan was preparing to escort his next convoy, something far more dangerous was getting ready to hunt it. The Admiral Scheer was a Deutschland-class heavy cruiser, what the British press called a pocket battleship. Named after the German admiral who had commanded the High Seas Fleet at the Battle of Jutland in 1916, she had been launched in 1933 and carried a devastating amount of firepower. 6 28-centimetre guns, that's 11 inches, mounted in 2 triple turrets, 8 5.9-inch secondary guns, torpedo tubes, anti-aircraft batteries, and she could make 28 knots, nearly twice the speed of Jervis Bay. She was specifically designed to outgun any cruiser fast enough to catch her and outrun any battleship heavy enough to threaten her. Under the command of Captain Theodore Kranker, the Scheer slipped out of keel on October 27, 1940. She stopped briefly at Stavanger, Norway, then broke through the Denmark Strait into the open Atlantic on the night of October 31st. Her mission was simple: find Allied merchant convoys and destroy them. And she was very good at her job. By the time the war ended, Admiral Scheer had sunk 113,223 tons of Allied shipping across 17 ships, making her the single most successful capital ship surface raider of the entire war. Kranker's radio intercept team, the B-Dienst, had already identified convoy HX-84 in the area, and on November 5th, the weather finally cleared enough to launch one of Scheer's Arado R-196 float planes for reconnaissance. The spotter plane found what it was looking for: 38 merchant ships, 9 columns wide, crawling across the North Atlantic. And guarding them, a single converted passenger liner. The wolf had found the flock, and there was only one sheepdog. Convoy HX-84, the 84th Halifax to Liverpool convoy, had departed Halifax, Nova Scotia on October 28, 1940. 38 merchant ships carrying everything from grain to fuel to ammunition, organised into 9 columns of 4. Among them was the tanker MV San Demetrio, loaded with aviation fuel from Galveston, Texas. The passenger vessel HMS Rangatiki, at 16,698 tons, the largest ship in the convoy, carrying 230 crew and 25 passengers, including women and children. Freighters from 6 different nations. These ships had been handed over to Jervis Bay at the edge of the Western Atlantic. Destroyers and corvettes had covered the first few hundred miles from Canada, then turned back. From that point on, for over 1,000 miles of open ocean, Jervis Bay was the only protection they had. Aboard the Jervis Bay herself, the crew was a mix of Royal Naval Reserve sailors and merchant marine volunteers. The only career Royal Navy officer aboard was Captain Fagan himself. Many of the crew came from Caithness in northern Scotland, particularly the town of Wick. 18 men from that one small Scottish county were serving aboard the ship. Among the crew was 27-year-old able seaman John Jeffcott, a former London policeman. Before the war, Jeffcott had arrested a woman who claimed to be a fortune teller. Angry at the arrest, she told him he would never live to see his 28th birthday. His birthday was November 6th. One day away, and then, just before 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a lookout aboard RMS Rangatiki spotted smoke on the port bow. A warship was approaching the convoy from the north. Everything was about to change. The approaching ship was still about 15 miles away when Jervis Bay's signal lamp began flashing the challenge letter A. From the stranger came the reply, followed by the letters M, A, G. The Scheer's signals officer was trying to bluff, repeating whatever codes Jervis Bay transmitted, hoping to close the distance before revealing the truth. But the bluff failed. Almost immediately, the silhouette resolved into something unmistakable. 2 triple-gun turrets, a raked bow, a pocket battleship. Captain Fagan had seconds to make a decision that would determine the fate of 38 ships and thousands of lives. He could have turned south with the convoy and tried to run. Jervis Bay might have survived, but the convoy would have been at the Shear's mercy. He didn't hesitate. Fagan ordered the convoy's commodore to scatter the merchant ships immediately. Drop smoke floats, turn to starboard, and run for the gathering darkness. Then he ordered Jervis Bay to increase to full speed, turn to port, and steer directly toward the Admiral Shear. A converted passenger liner with 1898 vintage guns, making 15 knots, charging head-on at a pocket battleship with 11-inch guns and a 28-knot top speed. The math was obscene. The Shear could hit Jervis Bay from nearly twice the range that Jervis Bay could return fire. Every shell from those 11-inch guns weighed over 660 pounds. Each salvo launched 2.5 tons of ordnance. But Fagan wasn't trying to win a gunnery duel. He was buying time. Every minute the Shear spent dealing with Jervis Bay was a minute the convoy had to scatter into the November darkness. Dusk was falling. If he could hold the raiders' attention long enough, most of those 38 ships might survive the night. He had promised to take them in as close as he possibly could. He was about to keep that promise. At 4:42 p.m, with the range still over 10 miles, Admiral Shear's forward turret fired a ranging salvo. The shells screamed across the Atlantic and fell short of Jervis Bay. Jervis Bay was still completely out of range of her own guns, but Fagan kept coming, closing the distance, his ship trailing, a thick smoke screen behind her. The convoy was beginning to scatter. Every second counted. The Shear's second salvo flew overhead. The third did not miss. The shells struck behind the bridge and above the wheelhouse. In one devastating impact, the foremast was shot away. The gun director, the rangefinder, the gunnery transmitting station, all destroyed. The electrical cables feeding power to the guns were completely severed. Jervis Bay's entire fire control system was gone in a single salvo. The battle had barely begun, and Jervis Bay was already finished as a fighting unit in any conventional sense, but she kept coming. Her guns could now only fire independently, each crew aiming and loading by hand, using local control with no coordinated targeting. And the Shear was still beyond their range. It didn't matter. The gun crews kept firing anyway. One survivor later described it as being like a bulldog attacking a bear. Every shot fell short, but the intent was clear. Captain Cranker on the Shear was growing frustrated. He had expected to find easy prey, not a ship that was deliberately closing with him. The earlier delay caused by the cargo liner Mopan, which the Shear had intercepted and sunk before reaching the convoy, had already cost him valuable daylight. Now this burning escort was blocking his path to the merchant ships and refusing to die. When Cranker tried to alter course to go around Jervis Bay and attack the scattering convoy, Fagan matched the turn. The burning liner swung onto a collision course, forcing the Shear's captain to deal with her first. Meanwhile, shells continued to tear through Jervis Bay. The port bulkhead of the radio shack was blown away. Radio operators and coders were killed. A surviving radio man climbed to what was left of the bridge and found Captain Fagan still standing, clutching his shattered right arm, blood running down his sleeve. The forward port side of the ship had become a mass of twisted steel, bent plating, fires, and dead and wounded sailors. A shell loosed the anchor. Another knocked the white ensign off the mainmast. A young sailor climbed the rigging under fire to put it back up. For 22 minutes and 22 seconds, Jervis Bay was the exclusive target of Admiral Shear's guns. Around 335 heavy rounds were fired at her. By the end, her bridge was gone, her engines dead, her entire superstructure ablaze, and the port side of her hull was ripped open. Captain Fagan was killed when the bridge received a direct hit. He went down somewhere in the wreckage of the ship he had chosen to fight from. With Fagan dead and the ship mortally wounded, Lieutenant Commander George Rowe gave the order to abandon ship. All of the lifeboats had been destroyed. but some rafts and the ship's 18-foot jollyboat had survived. Shortly after, HMS Jervis Bay rolled over and sank beneath the North Atlantic. The white ensign was the last thing to disappear below the waves. Lieutenant Moss, one of the survivors, later recalled the final moments. The enemy had been sighted at 10 minutes before 5 o'clock on the port bow. The crew knew what was going to happen. When Captain Fagan had joined the ship, he had told them that if they ever ran into a more powerful adversary, he would try to get within range and do what damage he could. Jervis Bay steamed straight for the enemy. The first salvos from the sheer fell short. They fired back with their 6-inch guns. Then the third salvo caught them, hitting the bridge, the engine room, and amidships. As the survivors pulled away in their lifeboats, flaming debris rained down around them. They could see the raider seeking the convoy with searchlights, firing salvo after salvo. Then, just after midnight, they spotted the darkened hull of a ship nearby. They signaled with a torch. It was the Swedish freighter Stureholm, one of the ships from the convoy. Captain Olander had told his crew that he would not leave before making sure there were survivors, waiting to be picked up. Standard convoy orders were clear. If attacked, keep going. Stopping to pick up survivors in waters where a raider was still hunting was suicidal. Every captain in the convoy knew this, but Captain Sven Olander of the Swedish freighter Stureholm, a neutral ship that had no obligation to risk anything, gathered his crew and proposed something extraordinary. He told them that Jervis Bay had given the convoy a chance to escape. He wanted to go back and see if there were men still alive in the water. The crew agreed. Stureholm turned around, sailed back through waters where the Admiral's shield was still hunting, and searched in the darkness for life among the wreckage. They pulled 68 men from the freezing Atlantic. 3 of them later died of their wounds. Of Jervis Bay's crew of 254, only 65 survived. Able seaman John Jeffcott, the man who had been warned by the fortune teller, was not among the survivors. He died on the eve of his 28th birthday. As for the convoy, Fagan's sacrifice had done exactly what he intended. The Admiral's Skier, now operating in gathering darkness and forced to rely on searchlights and star shells, managed to find and sink only 5 merchant ships out of 38. The tanker San Demetrio was hit and set ablaze, abandoned by her crew. But 2 days later, some of them found her again, still floating, reboarded her, put out the fires, restarted the engines, and brought her into port. That story became a 1943 film. 32 merchant ships and their crews survived. Thousands of tons of desperately needed supplies reached Britain, because one captain and his crew bought them the time they needed with their lives. News of the action reached Britain within days. King George VI was, by all accounts, deeply moved. He later wrote in his diary, "When he attacked the Admiral's Sheer, he knew he was going to certain death." The Victoria Cross, initiated by the King himself, was awarded posthumously to Captain Fagan. The citation read, "For valor in challenging hopeless odds and giving his life to save the many ships it was his duty to protect." It was the only Victoria Cross awarded for convoy escort duty during the entire 6 years of the war. The medal was presented to Fagan's sister at Buckingham Palace in June 1941. Winston Churchill praised Fagan in the House of Commons, calling his charge a forlorn and heroic action that exemplified the spirit of the Royal Navy. Years later, in his 1945 broadcast speech marking 5 years of war, Churchill named Fagan among the Irish heroes whose sacrifice, he said, should make all bitterness between Britain and Ireland die. But the legacy of Jervis Bay went beyond medals and speeches. The German High Command was watching too. Admiral Scheer had sunk only 5 ships out of 38, a poor result for a pocket battleship. Combined with the loss of the Bismarck in May 1941, the disappointing returns from surface raiding helped convince the German leadership to shift resources toward U-boats instead of capital ships. Hitler ordered in May 1941 that German battleships would only operate in Norwegian waters. the Admiral Scheer never returned to the Atlantic to raid convoys again. Jervis Bay didn't just save convoy HX-84. She helped change the course of the naval war. Today, there are memorials to Jervis Bay and her crew in Bermuda, in St. John, New Brunswick, in the Scottish town of Wick, and on the Chatham War Memorial in England, where Captain Fagan's name is inscribed because his body was never recovered. The North Atlantic is his grave. Fagan didn't die so that anyone could feel good about a story. He died so that ships could escape. He didn't offer a gesture, he offered minutes. And on a winter sea, minutes are the currency of survival. If you want to see another story of impossible courage at sea, click the video on screen now. And if you've made it this far, subscribe. We cover stories like this every week.